Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all between the binary. This is Get Informed with Wajeeh. I am Wajeeh Lion. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I have a special one for you, not now, but later, where we're interviewing a professor. She's been, she's from the Middle East. She's been an expert in her field for more than 20 years as a consultant and as a professor specializing in U.S. Middle Eastern relations, specializing in anti terrorism, specializing in helping the West find out why things are happening the way they're happening. And I saw that she published three amazing articles detailing some of the U.S. actions and uh, what consequence that brought to the United States. So I figured it would be important for me to interview her, and you know get you guys in terms of because I know many of you are literally here just so that you could learn something new, and I want that to happen. I thought I sent the questions to her. Hold on. Oh shoot, I didn't send her the questions. Let me send her the question. I'm glad I checked. Um, for that interview with Dr. Rehab, it's going to be in 6 hours, almost in 6 hours. I have put the live, I have put the link to that live stream on my group chat. So if you want to take a look at that and add it to your calendar, uh, someone is saying big echo. Lower the volume. I don't think I have echo on specifically on my device because I can control that. Yeah, everyone's saying it sounds fine. So maybe it's something on your end. No echo here. Perfect. Appreciate you guys. Will Trump do something before the market opens? We'll see. I suspect he will say something like, "Oh, the war is over," or he will do something like, they're already saying that Iran is almost finalizing the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. And yesterday I explained to you what a MOU is. It's basically an agreement to agree on finding an agreement regarding the war. So they're sitting down to talk about whether they want to talk about having peace or not. That's all it is. It's not a legally binding agreement. It's not something that will end the war. Even if they signed it, don't assume that anything will happen. Yet the market will react to that. The market will react to that. Do you think the Middle East states countries were already on the verge of cutting their ties with the US when Trump started? No, the US wasn't on the verge of losing its allies before Trump took office and started this war. This has happened afterwards. And If we don't want to like, if we want to actually understand that, like, previous decisions from previous presidents have made some of the Saudi monarchs upset in the past. But in reality, like Malcolm was talking earlier, and that's why I was asking him so many questions, because I wanted his perspective to come out a little bit. Um, Reality of the situation is all previous presidents were very professional. They were not transactional. They showed up when the Saudi government or the Kuwaiti government needed the United States, because they understood that this is an alliance, this is a partnership where it's not all about the money. There has been conspiracy theories in the Middle East that the United States is only transactional. There has been conspiracy theories in the Middle East that the United States doesn't care like about anyone unless it's about itself. And many of that is true, but there has never been a conspiracy theory in the Middle East that the president of the United States is the only one looking for after himself. It's usually like, oh, the president is working for, the Illuminati. The president is working for uh, uh, the Freemasons. I got an invitation to go to the Freemason. I didn't want to pay the membership. And by the way, when I was in college, let's remember not to conspiracy Middle East. So like when I was in college in the United States, I had a friend of mine who reached out to me, and he said, like, he saw that I was, quite social, popular, had a lot of friends. Um, so I got an invitation from few college fraternities to join their fraternity. And I had no idea what a fraternity is. Fraternities are like almost like an American thing. Most of the rest of the world don't have something called fraternity. There are fraternal orders, but it's kind of different than like how the US sees their fraternal orders. There is Freemasons in Europe. We do have some Freemason in the Arab world as well. Most popular Freemasons in the Arab world would be in Egypt. But we all did not know that there's some sort of fraternal, like, brotherhood. We just assumed that it's a cult. In the Middle East, that's what perspective is. Um, but when I was in college, one of my friends said, if you want to understand, a big part of the American culture, you need to join a fraternity. And I was like, okay. So I was thinking about joining a fraternity, but at the time I lived with my family and going to college in the United States. And unlike many Americans, if I go to my dad and tell him I want to move out, my dad would be offended. Unlike many Americans, when you turn 18, you're supposed to move out and become independent. That's not my family. That's not many Middle Eastern families. As soon as you become 18, you have family responsibilities. You take on many of the responsibilities of the father. You took on some of the responsibilities of the mother, and you become, a part of the adult side of your own family. So when I told my dad I want to join a fraternity, he said, "No, I don't have a son moving out. You're old now. You have a beard. You have mustache. You think you're old enough to live in your own, huh?" Most Americans would be like, "Yeah, get the fuck out of here." So I was like, I can't, man. I can't join. So Pi Kappa Phi comes out later on, and they did not have a house. So the opportunity was I can join and I don't have to move out of my parents' house. So I was like, sure. Um, so I went and I joined Pi Kappa Phi, and that was my first insight into American fraternal system. And you know what? I'm the type of person, if I want to learn something, I'm gonna go experience it. And it gave me a lot of insight and it helped me explain what fraternities are to a lot of people in the Middle East. Unfortunately, fraternities in the United States have a lot of bad actions. Not I'm not talking about the conspiracy theories, I'm talking about college fraternities where there is not a lot of oversight and there's a lot of sexual harassment, sexual assault, there's a lot of uh, hazing, there's a lot of forced drinking, there's a lot of other stuff like that. I did not, yeah, sexual abuse. I did not face any of that. Personally, I was not hazed. I was not because we were founding fathers of the chapter. We were like to the letter, to the word, and we followed all the rules to get chartered. But that also gave me an opportunity to learn about all of these, but like all of these harassments that happen. And when I was at K State, uh, I'm not gonna mention which fraternities or what, but there has been a fraternity that got kicked out of campus, and we ended up taking their house. Um, I was close to Dr. Bosco, who was the student life president at the time. And I also got a little bit of insight on actual things that happened at the time in the university that led up to the point where the lawyers of the universities were saying, you need to cut all ties with fraternities. Your office of student Greek life needs to close down. You can have fraternities that join your school, like that sends students to your school, but you cannot have fraternal life as part of the main education system. And when I saw that, I realized like how bad the systemic problem is. Men of integrity, Wajeeh. Yes. Mama X loyalty, yes. Integrity, no, which is very sad when it comes to fraternal life. When I was under threat of being kidnapped by the Saudi government and I needed to run away from my family and I was going to be kidnapped from the United States back to Saudi Arabia. The first people that showed up was a friend of mine that I helped consult with because um, I was a consultant for Riley County Police Department on how to stop like direct surveillance of the Muslim community and how to have a direct relations with the leadership of the Muslim community that could remove a lot of that uh a lot of yes, because I was in Manhattan, Kansas, and I my dad was the president of the mosque in town, and I grew up very religious. And when the police were sending undercover agents that were very obviously undercover agents to the mosque every Friday, and everyone felt like very insecure. Everyone felt unsafe. Everyone felt like, why is the police here on a regular basis without our permission? Why is the police here on a regular basis thinking like we're doing something wrong. So I reached out and I built a connection with Captain Tim Hegarty at the time. And everyone in the Muslim community was like, don't do it. You're going to be a target. And I understood all the risk that came with it, but I was willing to risk it all because at some point, like you get tired of the superstition, like stereotyping of one community. And I started this relationship where I invited the captain to tell us their perspective of how us foreigners in the United States should react when a police over pulls us over in Manhattan, Kansas, for example. Because the culture is different, very much so. In Saudi Arabia, if a police pulls you over, you are obligated to get out of the car and go meet the police officer. Unlike the United States, if you get out of your car, you get shot. So simple things like that. Um, I did not understand a lot about civil rights at the time. I was still like a young immigrant. I didn't know about police brutality, but I knew about police surveillance against the Muslim community. I knew that we were like being checked right and left. So I wanted the police to tell us what we're supposed to do instead of like going to a lawyer. And then I brought a lawyer to tell us their viewpoints, but I just wanted to make sure that we understood what the police wanted us to do when they pulled us over. Um, and that, made a good connection. After that, I reached out again and I said, is there anything that we could do to decrease this type of surveillance? I'm happy to be a, consultant. I'm happy to connect you with the leadership of the Muslim community. I'm happy to build an ambassadorship where you don't have to feel like you keep sending officers to the mosque and you could at least have one, trustworthy guy from the police to, keep up the good relationship with the mosque. And he said, I like that idea. I said, perfect. Manhattan, Kansas is one of two places in the US where the chief of the police and the sheriff have one position. So the way they do it is that the people elect the board of mayors, and the board of mayors take each of them like they elect like three or four people, and each of them take a 1 to 2 year period. I forgot the actual length of that service, but they're the ones that end up choosing the chief slash sheriff of the police for Riley County region. And so we set up an appointment with the chief of the police and all of the echelon of the leadership of the police department in Riley County. And the first thing I said is, I believe you can teach an old dog a new trick. That got everyone's attention. Said, let me ask you, I want to ask you, what is your main concerns about surveilling the Muslim community? Why do you feel very insecure? What kind of safety concern? I didn't say insecure. What kind of safety concerns do you have, and what can we do to help with that? So the basic answer is like, okay, well, after 9/11, we've had fears of domestic terrorism, and we've had fears of domestic terrorist attacks, and I was like, well, most of us are here are like international students coming either with a royal scholarship from the king or coming with some sort of high academic scholarship. So you should know that the crime rate with all of those people is very low. They're like, yeah, we understand. So I said, what if I create this ambassadorship for you? And I still don't know anything about, I didn't know much about the police brutality at the time. Black Lives Matter was not a thing that we knew about at the time. I studied or read in the books about the civil rights movement. I haven't seen any of it at the time. So I'm still new here. And what I said was, let me help you build that ambassadorship so you don't feel insecure about or you don't feel safe enough about these type of actions that you're worried from us. He said, yeah. I said, let me help you out even more. I'm not going to connect you with students. 90% plus of the Muslim population in Manhattan, Kansas are students. So they're there for 2, 4 years, 8 years max, get their master's or PhD together and go back home. They're not there for long. So I wanted to connect them to people that live in Manhattan, Kansas for 10 plus years. Professors, career workers, engineers, doctors who have nothing to do with being a student and everything to do with being a US citizen living in the United States. And what I did was I held a barbecue, Middle Eastern barbecue, where we invited the police over, the police leadership over, and the main rule was get to know each other. Why did I do that? In the meeting, when I was meeting with the sheriff or with the chief of the police, whatever you want to call him, because he had both positions, the question I asked is, "Do you go to church?" And his answer was yes. I said, "Perfect. When you go to church, do people you go to church with, you built a relationship where you have friends there?" He goes, "Yes." Awesome. When you go to that church and you have friends and they see something that went on wrong, do they call 911 or do they call you first? He said, they call me first. I said, awesome. Do you have that kind of relationship with the Muslim community? He said, no. We don't even have a Muslim police officer. I said, that's your problem. You are wanting to surveil a community without having a relationship with them. Meanwhile, you're only creating a harder situation for us to communicate, and you're creating a situation where a lot of Muslims feel like you are attacking them without you having to do anything to begin with. Can we fix that? And they're saying, yeah, sure. What do you have in mind? I was like, look, let me take care of that. So I spoke with the Muslim leadership, and it took a lot of convincing, and you can't blame them. A lot of them like were scared about like building that type of ambassadorship with the police. Uh, and that ambassadorship created a strong relationship with the police and some of the leadership in the Muslim communities. And later on, we had a Muslim American, a guy that wanted to become a Muslim, an American that came in unannounced, and all of a sudden he wanted to be a Muslim, and all of a sudden he wanted to be a person that calls the prayer without any religious teachings or any religious training. All of a sudden he's like wearing Middle Eastern clothes while like no one from us was wearing Middle Eastern clothes, and we like started feeling very uncomfortable. I think one of the leadership has asked the police / FBI to keep an eye on him. And they ended up keeping an eye on him. and he ended up trying to do a terrorist attack at Fort Riley military base. And was it not for this type of relationship? Was it not for this type of community building? Was it not for this type of diplomacy? All of that would have gone to the shit. I don't take any I don't take any credit for the terrorist attack being shut down by me. I didn't do it. I didn't even report it. I didn't even know about it. But I believe that the system that I have put down has resulted in a situation where instead of the Muslim community being blamed for something they have not done, to a situation where we contained someone that wanted to commit a terrorist attack with the name of Islam. Could it happen? Yes, it could. It needs all sides to be willing to trust each other. It needs all sides to be willing to work with each other. It needs the police needs to stop uh, their 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 vision of what it looks like to be a Middle Easterner. Because the one that wanted to do the terrorist attack was an American. Wasn't even like he wasn't even born Muslim. So like another thing that you need to consider is homegrown terrorism that happens consistently in the United States. And not only by Muslims. Homegrown terrorism happens with all kind of faith. In fact, we learned that your economic class has nothing to do with whether you're a terrorist or not. What has no, that's a different topic. Dr. Rehab is messaging me. Sorry, I'm responding to her about the podcast. You know, the thing about fighting terrorism is you're not just fighting like a group. You're not fighting an organization. You're not fighting. You have to fight the idea. The podcast is 3 p.m. my time, I believe, or it's and better where it is in almost 5 hours. I put it in I put it in the group chat. Um, so you know the situation is dire. The United States needs to reimagine how they do security. It needs to reimagine its relationship with the international world and its own citizens, whether they're citizens or green card holders or students. Uh, the police needs to have some sort of reform. The FBI needs to have some sort of reform. The CIA needs to have some sort of reform. Our military infrastructure needs to have some sort of reform. Uh, Yesterday, I was watching a short documentary about Peloton and how this AI software company became the the backbone of our intelligence system, and how it became the way that the U.S. government does all its surveillance on its all of its citizens, where they're planning to connect essentially the CIA to the FBI to the NCIS, not NCIS, what are they called? Uh, the ones who specialize in the cybersecurity. Um, NSA. Yes, everyone. You guys are saying it. I'm looking it up. NSA. That's right. So NSA, CIA, FBI, and police. Before 9/11, none of them talked to each other. Before 9/11, each of these organizations would do their own investigation and keep the information to themselves. I will summarize that documentary and do a little bit of research and write you an article about it because it's worth every minute. What happened is we had a person that specialized in Islamic anti-terrorism at the time who was paying attention to Osama bin Laden after the Cold War and have flagged Osama bin Laden as a potential danger to the United States. The FBI, in the same time, was finding out that there was some possible Muslim extremists coming to Minnesota and getting their uh, airplane pilot school from a flying school here in Minnesota. These organizations did not talk to each other. The same pilots that got their pilot training were the ones that committed the 9/11 attack. Had we had open communication between all of these organizations, a lot of people believe that they would have been able to prevent 9/11 from happening. I take it even further. If we did not help Osama bin Laden, if we did not ask the war for Muslims to go fight the war in Afghanistan against Russia, we would have had way less likelihood for Osama bin Laden to even exist as a terrorist. Possibly. Because the United States asking us Muslims to go have jihad in the Middle East against Russia was the first step for creating Al Qaeda, which means center, the center. And the center was a list of Excel file where basically Osama bin Laden had a list of names of the Mujahideen, the holy fighters, to be ready whenever another opportunity rises for jihad that they would show up and fight. When Saddam Hussein, after the Afghanistan war, when Saddam Hussein in 1991 decided to invade Iraq, Osama comes from a very rich family, billionaire family. Because of his connections to the Saudi royal family, he went and communicated with the king at the time that he has a list of thousands and thousands and thousands of fighters ready to come and defend the kingdom. But the king feared at the time that this would push Saudi Arabia into some sort of guerrilla warfare. He wanted this to end as soon as possible, as fast as possible, with the most professional unit. If you like this type of content, please take a minute to press those heart buttons and that share button. Invite your friends over. We're only at 250 people. We could be doing a lot more. I appreciate you. Happy Mother's Day, by the way. So the king denied Osama bin Laden access to the kingdom and allowing him to bring his own fighters to join the Arab Gulf War. And meanwhile, he called the George Bush father, come help us defend Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. And we talked a little bit about that today with Malcolm, where the United States sent all of its might in Desert Storm to protect the Gulf states from Iraq. That alone was enough for Osama bin Laden to call the Saudi monarch infidels and to call the Saudi government a tool of the West, and that jihad, religious holy war, should be waged against the Saudi monarch. This essentially gave Osama bin Laden the green light to start, grassroots organizing in his own view and figuring out what to do as the next terrorism step. If we did not ask for the Muslims to go fight that war, none of that would have happened because Osama would have not had the opportunity to collect the Mujahideen's communications information. He would have not figured out who he's allied with and who he's not allied with. He would have not had a chance to do a lot of things. Have, military experience, have leadership experience, um, get some street cred essentially. Without that, none of that would happen. We are number 9 today. Look at that. I was going to the questions. 13 questions already. Wow. How are you, Wajeeh? I'm okay. Thank you very much. To look at the Eastern Middle East in the context to the Western mindset. Oh, Middle East, the Eastern mindset in contrast to the Western mindset. How does this play a part in the overall landscape of all of the transferring? Um, you have to understand, like, you don't need to understand all of you do actually need to understand all of the Middle Eastern ideologies, but just to make basic sense between the Western mindset and the Eastern mindset is the difference between Socrates and Confucius. Socrates, a Greek philosopher, idea of a social contract starts with the individual. You first and then everyone else. The Confucius ideology, on the other hand, is the community makes the individual. So your family first, your country first, and then you. If you don't have a family, if you don't have a country, you don't exist. Meanwhile, the Socrates idea is no, if you don't exist first, the rest of the community doesn't exist. For someone that lived in both ideologies, I think the best one is a balance between self and community. I don't think any of them should be put first. There should be yin and yang. There should be some sort of balance. And without that balance, I think our society will fall apart. Focusing too much on individualism ends up fracturing the community. Focusing too much on the community ends up losing people personality and losing people individuality. And for you to have both is important. For example, when I was thinking about coming out before I was outed, the first thing that came to mind wasn't me. The first thing came to mind, how will the people treat my family? Will people end up marrying my sister? Will people end up marrying my brother? Am I going to put my family in danger? Were the first questions that I had to ask myself before. What does that mean to me? In fact, when you have a society that's only focused on community first and then individuality, after that individual separates themselves from that community, they end up spending years trying to figure out who they really are away from their community. You may not have that problem in, an individual society that comes from Socrates, for example, but you end up creating very strong individual personalities. But, you know, both of them, I think, should work together instead of working separately. I have not been following the investigation of Alyssa into Robert Maxwell and Epstein. If I'm honest, I'm focusing on my health treatment and focusing on the current war. And if I do any more, I won't have any time for myself, for my health recovery. And I need to take my meds, and my meds, put me to a sleeping mode essentially. So it's kind of hard to do both at the same time. I hope you understand. I do plan on doing another collaboration with Kate Justice. I don't know if Alyssa is on Substack, but if she's on Substack, I'm more than happy to interview her. But I think this would be a good collaboration with Kate Justice and Alyssa. Maybe we'll see what happens. I've messaged Lev Parnas. I haven't heard from him. I've messaged for Waj. I haven't heard from him either. I messaged Philip DeFranco. I haven't heard from him either. If you have direct communication with any of them, let them know that you'd like to see a collaboration between them and me. I'm more than happy to do it. We just need the communication to happen. Someone's saying I watched a show on the massive underground cities built underground in Turkey. Does Iran have a huge underground areas built underneath Iran? Not for civilian uses, all of it for military and nuclear uses. They have cities built under mountains, which is why the United States has been having a hard time destroying all of the Iranian military capabilities. And these cities are at least 500 meters below the mountain and is reinforced with really, really advanced concrete that can withstand 50,000 psi and plus. And the underground cities will have everything from hospitals to communication centers to rebuilding. Like they have a whole engineering center to rebuild anything that falls down, or if like the United States hit any of made any damages, these guys would be able to reopen the tunnels from within inside of the cities. Now they don't even need to come out. And Malcolm talked a little bit about how Iran's Air Force capability basically got shattered, and that's how Iran would in the future move all of its military capabilities under these mountains because they have shown that they are very, very, very hard to get to, even using the strongest B 2 bombers that we have. We can't get to them. We used like more than 80 precision and B-2 bombers just to get to Khamenei in that one cave. Just to give you an idea. It is Patricia. Is Iran seriously negotiating or are they leading Trump on? I think it's a combination of both. They want to see where this goes, but in reality, they have no trust in the current administration or in the United States at all. The United States has betrayed Iran several times since before the current Islamic regime to now. And they don't see, they literally want to see the United States prove to them that they could trust the word of the United States. And as long as the United States doesn't know how to do that, I find it very hard for the Iranians to agree on anything. They will go and sit down to talk about the possibility of talking about peace talks, but that's what they're doing at the moment. They're not talking about having peace talks. They're talking about having the possibility of having a peace talk. That's what a memorandum of understanding is. So we're not even sitting down to talk to them about peace at the moment. We're sitting down to talk about the basic things that we want to talk about if we're going to talk about peace. So someone is saying most Americans have nothing to do with the fraternities. Those are for snooty rich kids. Social, yeah. I mean, majority of the kids I met in fraternities were wealthy, rich. I'm not gonna tell you you're not wrong. Um, but I didn't join fraternities to become extra rich, or I didn't join fraternities to make friends. I joined fraternities because I didn't know what the hell they were, and I wanted to know what the hell they were. That's all I wanted to learn what it is, and as I kept researching it, it didn't make any sense. So my only way of understanding what that would be is by experiencing it. So I decided to join a fraternity. Yeah. I wish I joined a black fraternity actually, because that would have given me a huge different perspective because black fraternities are way more focused on education from what I found out and way more focused on grassroots organizing and civil rights than regular regular college fraternities. There are social fraternities in the United States that focus on politics. There is a religious fraternity that has to do with the Catholic, with the founding father and the Catholics in the United States. There are fraternal orders that have. There are honorary fraternities that honor students that have amazing college degrees and has nothing to do with the social college fraternity lives. But I joined those honorary fraternities. I just wanted to know what the college fraternity was. And I did get an invite to join the Freemasons. I just thought it was stupid to pay people money for that. And I didn't want to pay a membership. And the reason I wanted to join the Freemasons was to learn what the fuck they're doing. Also, just, you know, but I decided not to join them. I know people who are in the who are Freemasons, and they told me not to join. My friends who are Freemasons advised me not to join, which is kind of funny. Why? I have no idea why they told me not to join. I don't remember why, but they said it's it's not worth your time or money. So after talking to few of my friends who are in, Freemasons, I figured out that, it's not best for me. Someone is saying Americans need to learn to respect other cultures. You don't need to go far in the United States to learn about other cultures. You don't even need to leave the US. United States is a half a continent or a quarter of a continent. Um, what you need to do is be willing to meet others from different cultures in your country and show humbleness and show willingness to learn. Invite them to your house. Uh, find out what they do and don't so you could respect their limits. Find out what their food requirements are so you don't offer them something that, ends up offending them. But you live in one of the greatest countries in the world where all of the cultures come to the United States. Many of them assimilate and many of them do not assimilate. People who do not assimilate is are people who also assimilate. They're both amazing opportunities for you to learn from them. You don't you don't need to go to Japan. You don't need to go to Saudi Arabia. You don't need to go to China. You don't need to go to Mexico. If you showed basic humbleness, if you showed basic respect, if you showed willingness to learn instead of you acting like you know everything, these people want to teach you. These people want to introduce you. These people want you to be part of their culture. In fact, they feel a lot of honor and feel a lot of respect because they look at themselves as ambassadors to their homeland countries. And they look at themselves as someone that is putting the best face of their nation. So when you are meeting someone who's too proud to assimilate, you, by introducing yourself and inviting them over to be part of your own community, you are making a way for the person to assimilate in your culture. Meanwhile, they are respecting their own ideas and they are respecting their own philosophy and respecting their own culture. That can happen. I don't know if you know, there are like respectable Japanese and Chinese tea houses in the United States with tea ceremonies. You don't need to go to Japan for a tea ceremony. We have tea ceremonies here in the United States. If you don't know what a tea ceremony is, it's a meditative seating with a tea master that knows how to brew the tea, that knows how to explain the tea for you, that brings in some wisdom while you're talking, that brings in some poetry, that makes it amazing experience. That's just one example. Most of the mosques that you have in your town want to have an open house every year. Most of the mosques that are in your town ends up having a Ramadan come in. You don't even need to fast, break your fast with us. Most of the mosques in the US wants other people to celebrate Eid with them, which is the Muslim holidays. If you are like in Minneapolis, there's a Hindu temple. If you like yoga, don't go to an Americanized yoga place. Find if there's a Hindu temple in your town. Because the difference between a yoga exercise and a yoga meditation is huge. Yoga is meant to bring you a peace of mind, a type of breathing. It's a type of practice in a religion. If you practice it part of the Hindu temple, you'll have a huge different experience than if you go to any yoga exercise, because that is always about stretching your muscles, flexing your muscles, and then at the end of the class you go namaste, Let's do a little breathing, and then you might have some meditation by the end of the class. But the reality of the situation is you are not getting the actual ethnic or cultural yoga class that you are thinking of. You can have an honest to God experience of yoga in the United States. You don't need to go to India. Find if there's a Hindu temple in your town. Let your kids experience and meet other kids from across the world. And best way to do that is allowing them to hang out with foreign exchange students that come to your country. The United States has been allowing an amazing soft power to influence foreign people who visit the United States by allowing them to send their kids over to be part of the U.S. education system, whether it's a year, 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years, depends on the program. But having your kids build that relationship with those foreign exchange students or those kids that have come abroad and moved here, not only you are going to make that kid feel welcome in this new country and you're going to make it easier for them to assimilate, but you're going to allow your child to have an insight into different culture without you having to do most of the work. Think about that. My best friend is someone who's a white guy from Manhattan, Kansas, and his family was pushing the idea of yes, it's an absolute great idea for you to build relationship with foreign students, and that type of leadership relationship builds amazing personalities. Breaking news from Iran. Iran has reportedly sent its response to the U.S. proposed text. So just now, now the Iranians have responded. What they said, I don't know, but we just know they have responded. One day I'll become ambassador, hopefully. Um, Pelletier, Trump administration launched. MashaAllah, the Trump administration launched their own AI military system. My dream is to become a U.S. ambassador. He says Trump administration launched Genesis. She said, that's Sharon. They require all nationals lab to get their files ready for AI to read. This AI in military is crazy. Military. I don't know if you know, but Pelotar was used in the processing of information to find out whether Osama bin Laden was in that compound that we penetrated and took him out of. Um, and the CIA was the first investor in Pelotar, and now they have become famous. Not like they've been in use for a long time. You're just getting to know them now. Do you know that? And now that they have been successful with the government, what they're doing is they're setting up their software. Now the government is using them for immigration to hunt down immigrants. Now they're using it to have stores use it, to have uh, commercial stores use it, hospitals, and so on and so forth. And they're planning to integrate all of that information into their security apparatus. Listen, there's someone who specialized in U.S. national security for a very long time, and he's the first one that identified Osama bin Laden as the threat. And coincidentally, the 9/11 attack killed that guy that identified Osama bin Laden as a threat. I forgot his name. I need to pull it out. He said, liberty and security do not go hand in hand. You have to find a balance. Basically, the meaning of what he's saying. You have to have a balance. You have to find a balance between security and liberty. The more security you have, the less liberty you have. The more liberty you have, the less security you have. And many people believe that that balance is essentially going to be gone by the time where we allow AI to go through all of our security, whereas all of our private information. If you're like this type of content, if you like what we are pushing, please press that heart button. Invite your friends to join us. And I hope you are having a great Mother's Day. I'm not going to keep you for long because I have another episode coming up later today. So we're going to cut it short. And please expect us with Dr. Rehab today, where we are going to cover the Middle East and U.S. relations and how the U.S. has been losing its standing in the Middle East. If you have questions about that for that episode, or questions for Dr. Rehab, um, I have added a thread in my group chat for the channel for you to guys from now start posting your questions. Uh, Let me post it. Yeah. If you go to the group chat, you'll find it over there. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching a recording. Like, please click that like button and that bell icon so you could receive the latest notifications right away when we publish the videos. And like I like to say, مع السلامة, bye bye. بالإنجليزي goodbye. Means with peace, goodbye, and peace be upon you, goodbye. It's something that we've been saying in my family since I was a child, so I just like to say it. مع السلامة, bye bye. بالإنجليزي goodbye. Yes. Sometime ending the live stream is a pain in